Hey, hi everybody. Thanks for joining me. The family self is made up of at least these four components: self-abandonment, self-denial, self-powerlessness, and self-borrowing. When we're doing those actions and when we're doing those things internally and externally, we are channeling our family self. For us to recover and to become more self-differentiated, we need to be able to identify between the difference between our family self and the real self, our real self. Now, why is that important? Well, because if we confuse these or we're not aware, and we're not aware of these two selves, then we're going to experience more reactivity, more anxiety, and we're going to project our issues into a situation. We're going to do that age-old psychodynamic word, transference. We're going to transfer things from the past to the present. And that's going to make things confusing, difficult. It's going to fog up things, and we won't be very clear-headed. Let me tell you, the family self is the way we think, feel, and act that reflects all we have absorbed from our family of origin growing up. And I mean by that family of origin, actually 3 generations. You know, the 3 generations is kind of what we consider to be the family unit or the family emotional unit or the family emotional organism. We often think that we only just have our feelings and thoughts inside of us, when actually we're a part of this bigger emotional, mental, and feelings unit that we've grown up in. So what again encompasses the family self? Self-abandonment. Because why would I say self-abandonment would be a family of origin issue versus a self issue? Because if you were truly being yourself, and if it was your real self, you wouldn't abandon you. So if we're abandoning self, we've learned that somewhere. We just didn't get that in the womb. Well, except for the last 2 or 3 generations that it may have passed on to us. But it's those times when we leave ourselves in the dust, when we don't listen to ourselves, when we choose others with no regard to ourselves. When we overfunction and enable and try to fix others, we are abandoning self. This is deeply rooted in our family self. And I use the term family self because that's one way to identify those parts of us. Let me give you an example. Let me talk about Nancy. Nancy's not real. I'm just going to make up this family. But Nancy is married. Her husband has a family that's alcoholic, immature, inappropriate, obnoxious, toxic, kind of mean. And she goes with her husband each time to these gatherings and to these events. And it's just miserable for her. She feels off her balance. She feels like she's way too reactive. She feels insecure. She feels like a child when she goes there, not the adult and professional that she really is. She denies the level of toxicity and abandons herself by attending these family gatherings to be a support to her husband, who is in denial about his family. She stays all day. She may even stay several days with them. She tries very hard to fit in, but can't. Feels bad if she doesn't fit in, then she feels horrible. And both of these, trying to fit in and feeling bad for not fitting in, are part of self-abandonment as well. She's living out her family self or her childhood growing up with a narcissistic family, and with her narcissistic family that she grew up in, toxic siblings, mean and critical mother, and very demeaning siblings that she grew up with and never fit in. Then she goes to her husband's family, and guess what she feels? All those things. That's her family self that she's operating out of. Her family self tells her to try to fit in so you don't get abandoned or you don't get rejected. Her family self tells her you cannot own your own differentness. You shouldn't even be aware of your differentness. Go along to get along and deny yourself just to be accepted or try to be accepted, which of course is all a myth. It's all from her past. And she does not need to do these things, but she feels obligated to, stuck in that. And that's when I talk about people who are stuck. You just feel stuck in that and you feel like there's no other options. Either I make a lot of trouble or I go along with the trouble. So I have an A or a B. And in many of my videos, I talk about family system self-differentiation is about an option C. And I've talked about that in some of my other videos. I hope you'll take a look at that. Her husband's family does not accept her anyway. And they never have. Siblings of his have told her, hey, I don't even know why my brother married you. And of course, she feels bad. She feels worthless. She feels rejected. And it's really painful for her. But she keeps going because it's the right thing to do. And again, from her perspective of family self, that's the right thing to do. Only it's not the right thing to do for her and for her real self. Number 2, self-denial is a part of the family self. This is self-unawareness, not being aware of myself. I don't notice myself. I don't notice my needs, my desires, my wants, my preferences. I actually live as if I don't exist. Only others exist. All my awareness is outward, just a little inward, except for pain, usually. Anger, frustration, shame, guilt. But we try to ignore that because we learned to try to ignore that growing up. I don't know who I am, where I'm going, what my purpose is, how I feel, think, or believe, or what really would be the best thing to do in this situation. If you're operating out of your family self, you're not going to come up with a really good solution about this dilemma out of your family self. And all of these things I shared are deeply rooted in Nancy's family self within her. Nancy is operating in self-denial or denial of self. When I say, do you know what you're feeling right now? And somebody says, I don't know. That's a part of self-denial. We've learned not to know. And so we just go, I don't know. I'm not feeling anything right now. Now, there may be times when we don't feel anything. I know that can be. But if we struggle with knowing our feelings, often we have denied those feelings for years. And we're not aware of those feelings. So that's a denial of ourself, a part of ourself that has feelings. She's not family aware, nor is she self-aware. And so she stays in this dilemma and is miserable. Nancy doesn't notice the connection between her husband's family and her family growing up. That's another part of denial. Or when we don't notice this and when we don't see that, then we're living out of the family self. She does not notice the price she pays for the interaction with his family. She does not notice the price she pays to her mental and emotional health. It's miserable. She dreads it. And it's so difficult for her. And now she doesn't fit in. They don't see her as an equal and other self to be embraced. And actually, she's a wonderful person. but not in this environment of toxicity or alcohol drinking, inappropriate behavior, all kinds of things, meanness, all kinds of things that's going on. Nancy doesn't really see she exists, and that's self-denial. She disappears in this environment. And when we don't feel we exist, when we disappear in an environment, that's an indication we're living out of our family self. And I kind of think about it as the where am I syndrome, or who am I syndrome. Who am I? Where am I? What should I do? We just have no answers for any of those because we don't know enough about self. We know a lot about what's going on around us, and we know a lot about how people are interacting or how they're interacting with us, but we don't know how it's impacting us. We don't know why it's impacting us, and we don't know how this is similar to long ago. I want to share with you, and I hope you'll join an experiential workshop that I'm doing on getting your family out of you, and a deeper processing of this family of origin within you, so you can live in your real self versus your family self. Thirdly, self-powerlessness. Living as if I don't have any power. She feels powerless in this situation. She feels caught. I want to support my husband. I love my husband. I want to be support for him for his family, though he's pretty much in denial a lot about what they do, or just goes, well, that's just where they are. Don't worry about it. Well, I wish it were that easy. If you're going somewhere and, people are drinking or being inappropriate with kids or language or meanness or all that, it's just kind of hard to go, oh, well, that's just the way they are. I'll just sit here and be pleasant. It's difficult to do that. And we tend then to choose to learn to be helpless because we've learned helplessness in the past. I end up letting others parent me rather than me parenting me. Because if I were parenting me, I would have more power over myself and over this situation that I'm a part of. So we don't know this is a parenting issue for us. We're limiting the power of our inner child. Our inner child feels awful, beat down, worthless. I don't fit in. I don't think this is right, but why can't I just get along? And we have all that struggle, and the inner child is in there just kind of running away from this whole situation and running away from you as well, or she's running away from Nancy. I limit the power of my adult self, so I don't make adult choices out of my real self to take care of that inner child or what I experience or feel inside with regard to these interactions. We end up with thinking, I can't, I won't, I'll never. We end up with those kinds of phrases, which again are those powerlessness words. And we live down to our wounded inner child versus reaching down and lifting up my inner child. And I see that happen often. We could do a whole video on that aspect. Nancy feels she can do nothing but go along and get along. She feels helpless to assert herself because any way she asserts herself, somebody's going to be unhappy. Her husband's family, or different members of them, or even friends who say, oh, well, you just have to let it go. Don't worry about it. Well, if I assert myself, they'll say, oh, you just need to go along. She feels that helplessness. She feels she can't win. There are no other options. And she embraces her lack of power. All of that we have learned growing up. Things seem futile, just like growing up. When we're children and we're in a family and we don't have the power, because we don't have as children, we feel powerless. And there's all kinds of dysfunction going on. Nancy had a narcissistic mother, an alcoholic father, and et cetera, and it was just a mess growing up, and she felt life was very futile. There's nothing she could do right. Her sense is, I'm a child again. Everyone else matters, and they are big. That's when you know you're operating out of that family self. Number 4, self-borrowing. We borrow from our family of origin their beliefs, feelings, actions, emotional process, maturity level, dysfunctional level, self-differentiation level. We absorb and borrow all of that from our family of origin and internalize that. But this is not our true self. This is our family self that we're borrowing from our family. For example, if your family devalues religion, so, oh, those people who go to church are just crazy people. If they go do this or do that, and spirituality doesn't even exist, and they send the message, you don't explore your own spirituality. Don't do that because it's a waste of time. And then if we become adults and we don't explore that for ourselves, then we're living our family's religious self and not ourself. The same is true if somebody is Catholic or Baptist or Muslim or Jewish or whatever they are, and they go, you've got to believe this or you won't be okay or won't be accepted. And again, if we do it out of duress or bullying, even from a family, that's not our real self, that's our family self. Nancy is still living out her borrowed and absorbed self from her family of origin, while remaining emotionally connected to the family emotional unit. She acts out her ascribed or absorbed beliefs of go along to get along, don't ever make anybody upset, no matter how bad people are, just get along. And remember, you're worthless and always wrong, you don't fit in. I should not disagree with my husband or his family about the situation. I should not disagree with them to care for myself. No, that's to care for your family self, not to care for your real self. Again, Nancy is now channeling her family process growing up, which is still internalized in her. She believes she is okay if her husband just accepts her, and if his family accepts her in their denial and emotional abuse. But that's a crazy way to be accepted. That's not true acceptance. That's self-abandonment, self-denial. And if I don't get their approval, I will relive my childhood of being criticized, rejected, shamed, and emotionally abused. Nancy is still using others to borrow self. Her family of origin, her husband, and his family in this instance and scenario. Again, I want to mention there's a workshop coming up, Getting Your Family of Origin Out of You, and I hope you'll take a look at that. And you'll join me for an intimate experiential workshop. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, and be wise.